And another thing about this is that Cancer is hearth and home, and maybe Jupiter is saying hearth and home is bigger than you think. It's not just the people, the immediate people around you. It is the people in this whole world. And not just the people, all the animals and the trees and the plants, everything. Our home is bigger than we think it is. Our people are bigger than we think it is. So I think this is the message of this particular summer solstice, is to acknowledge that we may be going more deeply into our feelings and our fears and whatever is happening, and also at the same time expanding our awareness of our greater family and expanding it with love. So with that, we go more into the story of Anya. Now Anya is one of the Tua Te Dana. The Tua Te Dana means the people of Danan. Danan is the ancient, probably the mother goddess. And the Tua Te Dana became the fairies in Ireland, and they went underground. And the story is that when the Celts invaded Ireland, the ancient people who were already there, who were probably the Neolithic people, the story is that they were wiped out, or that they went underground. So it's kind of an interesting thing that the ancient people were supplanted by this invasion of these warrior-like Celtic people who had sharp weapons of iron, and the ancient people who were the Neolithic people, or maybe they were Bronze Age, I don't know, but they were driven into hiding. The story is they went underground, and some of their gods and goddesses became the gods and goddesses of Ireland, and also they became the fairy folk. So I'll tell you the story of Anya. Anya was the daughter of the Dagda, and the Dagda was this big, jolly god. He was very earthy. He had a great sense of humor. He was a god of music as well and storytelling. He was a bit like Jupiter, larger than life. And then here comes Anya, who is the bright one, the goddess of the sun and of the moon. Another version of the story is that she's the daughter of Manannán mac Lir. Manannán mac Lir was the god of the sea, and he was a powerful sorcerer. He was the god of the other world, a powerful sorcerer. So these two strains, that many of the Irish stories have many versions, so there's two versions to this. So maybe Anya takes on some of the attributes of both her very jolly, outward-going father, the Dagda, and also the otherworldly Manannán mac Lir. So she has some of the attributes of both. And she is seen as being the goddess of fertility, of plenty. She's supposed to have healing properties, and she always is loving. And the stories are of her going around touching the people, kissing the people. And you can imagine after a long, cold, wet winter in Ireland, when the sun comes out, the people will go out in the sunshine and feel the sun kissing their faces. So maybe that's where this comes from, that she's the goddess of love and loving. And there's some amazing stories about her. One of the stories, and it has a kind of dark twist to it, there was this man he was the king of Cashel. His place was Cashel, which is in Tipperary. And he was a cruel king, but he was having some problems. And one of the biggest problem was the grass. When he was sleeping, the grass wouldn't grow, which meant that the cattle could not feed. And this was very troubling, and he was cruel. He was forcing his people to work harder and harder to create more and more, and meanwhile the grass wasn't growing right, so the cattle weren't growing. So his druid, he went to a druid called Ferchas, and Ferchas said, you need to go to Knock Anya. Knock Anya is the hill. Knock means hill in Irish. Anya is the name of the goddess, and this is her abode. Go to Knock Anya, and seek the advice there, seek the healing there, and you will be given the advice you need to turn this around. So he sets off to Knock Anya, but on the way he becomes kind of drowsy. He falls into this other kind of place, And by the time he gets to Knock-Anya, he's kind of forgotten what his purpose was. And then Anya appears before him. And she is the one with the flaming red hair. She's amazingly beautiful. She wears a yellow dress and a green cloak, and she's just this flaming bright one. And he is overcome with desire and lust, and he forces himself upon her, whereupon she bites off his ear.
Oh my goodness.
And now this was very significant because in ancient Irish times, a king had to be an unblemished one. So he had forced himself on her and dishonored her, and now she had dishonored him, and he could not go back as a king to his people. So there's another twist to this story. There's many twists to Irish stories. Another twist to this is that he goes to this hill, that one of the reason why his crops were failing is because Anya's brother, Eilean, he had been going, he's the god of fire, and he was enraged that the Celtic people had sent his people underground, and he and a gang of the other fairies were going around and setting fires in the field so the crops wouldn't grow. So he was really enraged, and that was in this story, that was the reason why Eilean came to Knock-Anya. And then, of course, he first of all, Eilean kills Eilean, and then he turns and forces himself on Anya, who bites off his ear. And if the story goes, he goes to pierce her after that with his sword, but she has disappeared into the ground. Anyway, that's another version to this terrible story. But I think there is a different kind of moral here. It's like she is the one that goes out amongst the people, loving the people. And the story is she always leads with love, caring for people, touching the people. And here comes this cruel king who dishonors her, and then she disempowers him. And I think this is more of the story than that of vengeance. It's like disempowering somebody whose power has gone awry. And I think there's a deeper message for all of us there to watch within where our own power has become too much, where we are relying on our egos too much, that we were too tuned into that, and that to come back to basics. So that is one of the stories of Anya. There's other stories too. And that Knock-Anya is this hill in County Limerick, and close by the hill is a great stone circle called the Grange Stone Circle. And it's actually more like a henge, it's built more like Stonehenge there. It's not as big as Stonehenge, but it has an earth embankment around it. And some of the early scholars figured out that at Samhain Eve, the sun set through two of the standing stones that lean towards each other. And they've also figured out that other stones are aligned with the solstices and other important times of the year. So this would have been a gathering place for the ancient people where they would have celebrated midsummer. And right near this stone circle is Loch Goor. And Loch Goor was originally a round lake. So it's kind of like there's this round hill and a round stone circle and a round lake. Now in I think the early 19th century, some clever people decided they needed to drain one end of the lake, this kind of marshy end of the lake. So now Loch Goor is more of a horseshoe shape. But it was a place of gathering, a place where people would have gathered during the solstices. So pretty amazing stuff here. And another legend about it is Anya's liaison with the third Earl of Desmond, who apparently became her lover, and then from their progeny, there was this whole line of people who were the Earls of Desmond. And there are other stories how she took many lovers, and she had many children, and that many of her children became part of the Irish population, so that many people have this fairy blood within them. So if you have any Irish in you, you may have some fairy blood as well. So Anya, as well as being the goddess of the sun, is also called the Fairy Queen. And there's a little bit of back and forth with, is she a goddess? Is she a fairy? And it's kind of like one and the same thing. It's powerful, it's mysterious, and it's also it's to be wary not to dishonor the fairies, not to dishonor their sacred places. And this goes on to this day in Ireland. Across Ireland there are many what they call fairy forts. And if you see a satellite image of Ireland, you will see in the fields there's many like round areas, and sometimes they're ancient small stone circles, and sometimes there are circles of sacred trees, like the hawthorn tree. And people are very, very respectful of the fairy forts. And there's one incident not so long ago. They wanted to build, I think, a freeway from maybe Cork to Dublin or something, and it was going to take down a fairy fort. And the local people rose up and said, no way, you leave that alone, and they had to reroute their plans. So there's still deep respect for these ancient sacred places, and I think that's wonderful. I think we all need to respect the earth and the spirits of the earth. I think for myself, I don't know if other people feel this, I feel that everything has its own little spirit, its own spirit watching over it. I think in the Hebrew tradition they talk about every blade of grass has an angel bending over it saying, grow, grow. And I think they call them the devas of the earth, the devas of the plants. And I think this is a story that is good to bear in mind in this modern day when we tend to be disrespectful of our earth and of the plants and the animals. And maybe thinking about at this time of this particular solstice where we're thinking of our larger family, our family of the whole earth, to grow that respect and that love for the earth within us, and to be like Anya, where we lead with love and lead with respect. So that's my story of solstice, and I hope that's meaningful to you all. Thank you.